Staff Sergeant Kate "Ghost" Miller had been in position for 6 hours when the sky turned purple. Through her scope, she watched the alien ships pierce Earth's atmosphere like needles through silk, their hulls rippling with colors that shouldn't exist. The decorated Marine Corps scout sniper kept her breathing steady despite the growing weight in her chest. 20 years of service, from Afghanistan to Venezuela, hadn't prepared her for this moment. "Ghost, you seeing this?" Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through her earpiece. "They're broadcasting worldwide." Kate adjusted her grip on her M40A7, the familiar texture of the rifle's stock grounding her as holographic displays lit up the Denver skyline. The aliens, the Vraxians, they called themselves, were putting on quite a show. Their message repeated in every human language, their ships casting mile-wide projections of their previous conquests. "I see it, Cap," she whispered, though she was alone on her mountainside perch. "Old habits die hard. They're not subtle, are they?" The images showed worlds burning, armies falling, civilizations crumbling before the Vraxian advance. But something caught Kate's eye. In each scene, the conquered species used energy weapons, plasma rifles, laser cannons, particle beams. They all dissipated harmlessly against the Vraxian shields, which rippled like oil on water. But when debris from the battle struck their shields, "Cap, you getting this to analysis?" Kate adjusted her scope, focusing on a particular ship hovering near the Wells Fargo Center. "Watch their shields when that construction crane fell. See how they react differently to solid objects." "Already flagged it, Ghost. But Command's more worried about their ultimatum. 2 hours to surrender, or they start deploying ground forces." Kate shifted slightly, her ghillie suit blending perfectly with the rocky outcroppings of the Rockies. Below, panic was setting in. Highways were gridlocked with evacuating civilians. National Guard units scrambled into position. Police tried maintaining order as crowds gathered to watch the ships, their phones raised like offerings to digital gods. The Vraxian Supreme War Leader appeared in the sky, his hologram towering over the city. His species resembled upright praying mantises, if praying mantises wore ceremonial armor and had too many eyes. His translator rendered his clicks and chirps into English with smug superiority. "Your species remains primitive," he announced, mandibles flexing. "Your projectile weapons and crude explosives pose no threat to our advanced shielding technology. We have conquered 37 worlds, each more advanced than yours. Their energy weapons could not penetrate our defenses. What hope do your primitive arms have?" Kate allowed herself a small smile. She'd heard similar boasts before, from warlords and dictators who thought themselves untouchable. Pride always came before the fall. "Ghost, new orders," Rodriguez cut in. "Hold position and observe. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "Copy that, Cap." Kate settled deeper into her hide, checking her range calculations out of habit. The nearest ship hovered at 1,476 meters. Perfect engagement distance, if it came to that. But I think they're the ones who don't understand what they're dealing with. Below, the first Vraxian dropships began their descent, their shields casting purple shadows over the city. Their confidence was absolute, their technology seemingly perfect. They had no concept of the human capacity for adaptation, no understanding of the deadly art of precision rifle work. Kate "Ghost" Miller watched through her scope as humanity's greatest challenge unfolded, her finger resting comfortably beside her trigger. The aliens thought Earth's weapons primitive, obsolete. But sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and Kate had a feeling these Vraxians were about to learn that lesson the hard way. She just had to wait for the perfect shot. And if there was one thing every sniper mastered, it was patience. The Vraxians made their entrance into downtown Denver with theatrical flair. Kate tracked their advance through her scope, counting 36 warriors in ceremonial combat armor, their personal shields creating a rainbow-like show as they strode down 16th Street Mall. Behind them, 3 massive walkers crushed parked cars beneath crystalline legs. "Showing off," Kate muttered, adjusting her position behind the ventilation unit of a high-rise. She'd relocated during the night, knowing the mountains would be too far from the action. Cap, you getting this feed? Affirmative. Ghost. Multiple feeds coming in worldwide. Same pattern everywhere. They're not even trying to be tactical. Rodriguez sounded exhausted. They're treating this like a parade. A Vraxian officer, distinguished by its more elaborate head crest, stopped to examine a destroyed Humvee. National Guard units had tried engaging the aliens earlier, only to watch their rounds dissolve against those damn shields. The officer picked up a spent .50 caliber shell casing, clicking its mandibles in what Kate swore was amusement. Primitive species, the officer's translator broadcasted to the eerily empty street. They still rely on projecting small pieces of metal. How quaint. Kate's jaw tightened. She'd seen enough combat to know that mockery often masked ignorance. These aliens had no concept of ballistic trajectories, no understanding of the physics that made her profession an art form. Their shields sparkled against the morning sun, but she'd been watching them carefully. The energy field had patterns, rhythms. Ghost, Joint Chiefs are online. Rodriguez cut in. They're seeing what you're seeing. That debris theory of yours. They want more data. Can you? An explosion cut him off. 2 blocks away, a piece of concrete from a partially collapsed building tumbled down, striking a Vraxian warrior's shield. The alien stumbled, its shield flickering differently than it had against bullets. The concrete had passed partially through before being deflected. Tell them to check their feeds, Kate whispered, her trained eye catching every detail. Their shields are calibrated for high-velocity impacts and energy weapons. They react slower to objects moving under a certain speed. That's why they're not worried about walking into buildings or debris. Supreme War Leader Cax's hologram appeared again, this time projecting from a device carried by one of the walkers. His image floated above the Denver Art Museum, addressing the few humans brave or foolish enough to remain. Your military forces have proven inadequate, he announced, his multiple eyes gleaming. We have suffered 0 casualties despite your primitive attacks. Our shields make us invulnerable to your weapons. Submit now, and we will be merciful. Kate's finger twitched near her trigger. The shot would be complex. Wind channeling between buildings, temperature variance, multiple vectors to consider. But she'd made harder shots. Negative. Ghost, Rodriguez said, reading her mind. Stand down. We need to understand their weaknesses before we reveal our capabilities. Besides, that hologram's probably broadcasting from orbit. A scream drew Kate's attention. Through her scope, she watched a Vraxian warrior casually flip a police car, its shield automatically adjusting to the weight. Inside the car, an officer had been trying to help an elderly woman evacuate. These shields, the warrior clicked, its translator making the taunt clear. They are beyond your comprehension. We have perfected defensive technology over centuries. What could primitives who still use gunpowder possibly teach us? Kate memorized the warrior's markings, promising herself that particular alien would learn exactly what humanity could teach them. But for now, she maintained her discipline, gathering intel as the Vraxians continued their show of force. Ghost, new orders, Rodriguez said. Fall back to secondary position. Command wants you to coordinate with other scout snipers. We're seeing similar shield behavior globally. They want your expertise. Copy that, Kate whispered, already planning her next move. These aliens, for all their advanced technology, had forgotten the basics of warfare. They'd forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution was the deadliest. And Kate Ghost Miller was about to give them a lesson they'd never forget. Kate's moment of revelation came during what the media was calling the Battle of Cherry Creek. Her new position, a half-finished office building on the edge of the shopping district, gave her a perfect view of the unfolding disaster. Maintaining overwatch, Cap, she whispered into her comm. Below, a Vraxian patrol had cornered a group of National Guard troops who had refused to evacuate civilians. The aliens were toying with them, letting their shields absorb small arms fire while advancing with mechanical precision. "Ghost, maintain distance," Rodriguez warned. "We're still under orders, Toe." A different sound cut through the gunfire. One of the guardsmen had brought a Barrett M82, and the heavy .50 caliber rounds were having an unusual effect. Kate zeroed in through her scope, watching as each impact created a different ripple pattern in the Vraxian shields. "Cap, you seeing this?" Her trained eye caught something crucial. "The shields aren't stopping the rounds. They're trying to slow them first. Like they can only handle energy in stages." The Vraxian commander raised its weapon, some sort of plasma caster that hummed with deadly intent. But Kate wasn't looking at the weapon. She was looking at the shield's modulation, at the way it adapted to different threats. The aliens had solved energy weapons by creating shields that could disperse energy, but kinetic force. Kate made her decision. "Ghost, don't." Her first shot was perfect. 20 years of training, countless hours of calculating wind patterns and ballistic trajectories, all distilled into a single moment. The .50 caliber round from her rifle crossed 800 meters in the blink of an eye, moving faster than the Vraxian shield could cycle through its defensive patterns. The alien commander's head exploded in a spray of purple gore. Silence fell over Cherry Creek. The remaining Vraxians froze, their mandibles clicking in what had to be confusion. They had never seen one of their own die like this, never seen their shields fail so completely. "Holy shit," Rodriguez breathed. "Command, are you seeing this?" "Ghost just." Moving positions. Kate cut in, already breaking down her rifle with practiced efficiency. The aliens would trace the shot, but they wouldn't understand how to look for a sniper's hide. Their reliance on shields meant they had never developed counter-sniper tactics. The Vraxian response was chaos. They fired plasma bolts wildly, their synchronized movements dissolving into panic. Their shields flared brightly, consuming enough energy to stop a capital ship's weapons, but useless against simple physics. Kate was 3 blocks away, setting up her next position, when Supreme War Leader Cax's furious transmission reached every screen in the city. "This deception will not stand." His translator barely kept up with his clicking mandibles. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm us." This was a malfunction. Nothing more. But Kate could hear the fear in the electronic voice. She lined up her next shot carefully, watching through her scope as a Vraxian officer tried to restore order among its troops. They had switched their shields to maximum power, the energy field now clearly visible around each warrior. The second shot proved the first wasn't a fluke. "Ghost. Command is, they're going crazy over here," Rodriguez said as another Vraxian fell. "Every military leader on Earth just watched you crack their invincible defense. They want you to. Tell them to get me every sniper they can find." Kate interrupted, already moving again. "And get me everything we have on their shield frequencies. They're not invincible. They're not even properly defended. They're just over-specialized." As she disappeared into the urban jungle of Denver, Kate allowed herself a grim smile. The Vraxians had conquered 37 worlds, all of them more technologically advanced than Earth. But in doing so, they'd forgotten the fundamentals. They'd forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. And Kate Ghost Miller was about to remind them that humanity had perfected the art of kinetic warfare long before anyone dreamed of energy shields. The hunt was on. Operation Longshot came together in the basement of the Denver Public Library. Of all places, Kate sat at a scared table, surrounded by 12 of the best snipers from across every branch of the military. Maps of the city covered the walls, marked with Vraxian patrol routes and command posts. "Their arrogance is their weakness," Kate explained, her rifle propped against her chair. "They've never developed anti-sniper protocols because they've never needed them. No scope glint detection, no counter-sniper units, not even basic cover awareness." Master Sergeant Torres from the Army's 1st Special Forces Group nodded, like teaching a boxer who's never been hit. "Exactly." Kate pointed to footage playing on a salvaged laptop. "Watch their officers. They stand in the open, fully exposed. Even after losing commanders, they haven't adapted. Their entire military doctrine is built around those shields. The basement door opened, and Captain Rodriguez entered with a Marine Corps scientist, Dr. Puddle. The doctor carried what looked like a modified rangefinder. The analysis confirms Sergeant Miller's observations, Puddle said, setting up his equipment. Their shields operate on a predictable frequency pattern. They're designed to detect incoming energy signatures and adjust accordingly. But kinetic weapons, they're too fast for the shields to properly cycle. A Vraxian transmission interrupted them, bleeding through every electronic device. Supreme War Leader Cax's voice filled the room. Attention primitive species, we have upgraded our shield technology. Your cowardly attacks will no longer be effective. Surrender now and... Kate switched off the laptop. They still don't get it. They're trying to solve a physics problem with more energy shields. Which brings us to Operation Longshot, Rodriguez said, unrolling a fresh map. Ghost here has proven their weakness. Now we exploit it. Each of you will take a sector of the city. Priority targets are officers and command units. We need to shatter their chain of command. The briefing continued as Kate studied the other snipers. A Force Recon Marine who'd made impossible shots in Myanmar. An Air Force combat controller who'd eliminated high-value targets in the Amazon War. A Coast Guard marksman who'd defended shipping lanes from pirates. Each of them masters of their craft, now gathered for humanity's most important mission. Questions? Kate asked, standing. Remember, they're not used to staying in cover. They've never fought an enemy they couldn't see coming. Rules of engagement? Asked Chief Warrant Officer Chen, her own rifle case held close. Confirm officer status before taking the shot, Rodriguez answered. We need to maximize psychological impact. Make them fear open spaces. Drive them into buildings where their walkers can't follow. Dr. Patil cleared his throat. One more thing. We've detected increased power signatures from their shields. They're dumping massive energy into the defense grid, trying to stop your rounds. But physics doesn't care how much power they use, Kate finished. A bullet doesn't need to overpower their shields. It just needs to move faster than their defense matrix can cycle. The basement fell silent as distant explosions rattled the windows. The Vraxians were getting desperate, leveling buildings in their search for the invisible killers that had humbled their superior technology. They're looking for an army, Kate said, checking her ammunition one last time. They don't understand that 12 humans with rifles can bring their whole invasion to a halt. That's why we'll win. They'd forgotten what it means to be vulnerable. Rodriguez handed out encrypted radio sets. Call sign for the operation is Ghostwalker. You've all studied the footage of Sergeant Miller's successful shots. Now it's time to remind these aliens why humanity survived to reach the stars. Kate shouldered her rifle, its weight comforting after all these years. The other snipers did the same, each one a master of a craft the Vraxians had dismissed as primitive. One last thing, she said at the door. They're watching for muzzle flashes now. Take your shot and move. Make them chase shadows. As the team dispersed into the ruins of Denver, Kate allowed herself a small smile. The Vraxians were about to learn that sometimes the oldest weapons were the most dangerous ones. The hunt was about to become a slaughter. The Vraxians' response to Operation Longshot was as brutal as it was ineffective. Kate watched from the shattered window of a high-rise apartment as alien walkers systematically leveled another city block, their weapons reducing concrete and steel to molten slag. Ghost, status report. Rodriguez's voice crackled through her earpiece, nearly lost in the sound of destruction. They're getting desperate, Cap. Kate tracked a Vraxian officer through her scope. The alien wore so many shield generators it could barely move, energy fields layered like neon onion skin, turning every open space into a kill zone, but they still don't understand basic cover and concealment. The proof of her words came moments later. Master Sergeant Torres, positioned somewhere to the west, took his shot. The Vraxian officer's multiple shields flared brilliantly and failed just as spectacularly. Purple gore painted a nearby wall. Confirmed kill, Torres reported. Moving positions. These bugs really don't get it, do they? Kate was about to respond when movement caught her eye. A Vraxian patrol had cornered her spotter, Staff Sergeant Mike Lucky O'Brien, 3 blocks south. He'd been marking targets from a parking structure when a Walker's sensor sweep picked up his electronics. Lucky's compromised, Kate reported, already moving. Going for backup. Negative. Ghost. Rodriguez cut in. Area's too hot. Multiple hostiles. Kate switched off her radio. O'Brien had been her spotter for 6 years, through 3 combat zones. No way she was leaving him. The next few minutes were a masterclass in urban warfare. Kate moved through collapsed buildings and debris-filled alleys, using the very destruction the Vraxians had caused as cover. Their warriors, despite their advanced technology, had no concept of checking corners or securing their flanks. She reached a position overlooking O'Brien's situation. 5 Vraxian warriors had him pinned down, their weapons cutting through the concrete barriers he used as cover. Their shields sparkled with confidence as they advanced, expecting any human resistance to be futile. Kate's first shot caught the rear warrior in the head. Before its body hit the ground, she had already shifted to her second target. 2 more fell in rapid succession, their shields useless against precision fire from unexpected angles. The remaining Vraxians panicked, firing wildly at her general direction, but Kate was already moving, using techniques perfected by human warriors centuries before gunpowder existed. The aliens had no defense against an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict. Lucky, northwest exit, she whispered into her backup radio. Move. Now. O'Brien didn't hesitate. He broke from cover, sprinting through the kill zone as Kate provided precision fire support. A plasma bolt clipped his leg, but he kept moving. The next 10 minutes became a deadly game of cat and mouse through the ruins of downtown Denver. Kate half-carried her wounded spotter, using every trick she'd learned in 2 decades of combat to evade the alien pursuit. The Vraxians deployed sensors, drones, and even brought in some sort of atmospheric analyzer, all useless against basic camouflage and tactical movement. They never learned to track, O'Brien muttered as they finally reached a secure position. Never had to. Their shields made them lazy. Ghost report. Rodriguez's voice returned as Kate reactivated her primary radio. We've got multiple Vraxian units converging on your last known. Package secured, Kate interrupted, already treating O'Brien's wound. But we confirmed something else. They've got no real combat doctrine beyond shields up, walk forward. No squad tactics, no proper search patterns. Because they never needed them, Rodriguez realized. Until now. Kate watched through a broken window as the Vraxians continued their futile search, their warriors bunched together, presenting perfect target groups. In their panic, they'd forgotten even basic spacing. Send word to the other teams, she said, checking her ammunition. Tell them to watch for these patterns. The harder we hit them, the more they bunch up. The more they bunch up, the easier they are to hit. Rodriguez finished. Ghost, command is saying. Another explosion rocked the city as the aliens continued their desperate attempt to find an enemy they couldn't see. But Kate just smiled. They were about to learn that sometimes the best defense was simply understanding the basics of staying alive. And that was something humanity had mastered long ago. The mile-long hologram of Supreme War Leader Cax flickered above the ruins of Denver, his mandibles clicking in barely contained rage. Kate watched through her scope from the partially collapsed Cathedral Basilica, calculating distances and wind vectors even as the alien leader began his speech. Behold the consequence of resistance. Cax's translator boomed. Below him, in what was left of Civic Center Park, the Vraxians had gathered 24 human prisoners. Your primitive weapons have failed. Your cowardly tactics have failed. Witness now the price of defiance. Kate's radio crackled. Ghost, you seeing this? Rodriguez's voice was tense. They're broadcasting this worldwide. Range is 2,000, 100 meters, Kate replied quietly, her practiced eye noting every detail. Significant crosswind between buildings. Temperature variance from the fires. Multiple elevation changes. That's beyond maximum effective range for. Not today, it isn't. Kate adjusted her scope, watching Cax preen before his global audience. The alien leader had installed what their intelligence called an ultra-shield, supposedly impenetrable to any weapon in human space. The energy field around him pulsed with enough power to protect a small starship. Ghost, wait. Rodriguez's voice turned urgent. Command, says the prisoners. Tell Command I see them. Kate's finger rested naturally against her trigger. And tell them what every sniper knows. Remove the head. The body falls. Cax was still talking, still gloating. Your primitive projectile weapons are useless against our advanced shields. See now as I demonstrate our true power. Kate tuned him out, focusing entirely on the shot. This was beyond marksmanship. This was art. The wind whistled through broken buildings, carrying the scent of burning concrete. Her mind calculated a dozen variables automatically. Spin drift, barrel temperature, humidity, the Coriolis effect. If any of your cowardly snipers are watching. Cax continued, mandibles spread in what passed for a sneer. Know that this new shield technology makes me completely invulnerable. The sound reached them before they saw the impact. A sharp crack that echoed off empty buildings, bounced through vacant streets, and wrote itself into human history. Kate's round crossed 2 kilometers in the blink of an eye, moving faster than the alien shield could cycle through its defensive matrices. The result was spectacular. Cax's head simply ceased to exist, transformed into a purple mist that sparkled with the dying energy of his supposedly impenetrable shield. His body stood for a moment, mandibles still raised mid-speech, before collapsing. The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos erupted. The Vraxian guards panicked, their rigid military discipline shattering like their leader's shield. The human prisoners, trained military personnel chosen specifically for their execution, seized their moment. In the confusion, they overwhelmed their captors with practiced close combat techniques, another art that the shield-dependent aliens had never mastered. Holy, Rodriguez breathed. Ghost, that shot. That's going in every sniper manual until the end of time. Kate was already moving, breaking down her rifle with practiced efficiency. Tell Command that their command structure is about to collapse. Their entire society is built on technological superiority. Once that myth breaks, she didn't need to finish. Across Denver, across the world, the Vraxians were witnessing their supreme leader's death on repeat. Every screen, every hologram, every transmission showed the same thing. Their perfect defense had failed. Ghost. Rodriguez's voice was different now. Command says, they say the Vraxian fleet is showing signs of confusion. Some ships are pulling back. Others are going dark. You didn't just kill their leader. You killed their conviction. Kate allowed herself a small smile as she slipped through the shadows of her ruined city. The aliens had come to Earth expecting easy victory, believing their advanced technology made them invincible. Instead, they'd learned the hard way that sometimes the simplest weapons were the deadliest. A lesson written in purple blood, taught by a human with a rifle, and the patience to use it. Cap, she said, checking her ammunition, remind them what humans have always known. It's not about how advanced your weapon is. It's about understanding the fundamentals of using it. Behind her, the Vraxian Empire began to crumble, undone by a single shot from a weapon they had called primitive. The collapse of the Vraxian command structure was like watching a cathedral of cards implode in slow motion. Kate observed from various hiding spots throughout Denver as their once precise military machine descended into chaos. Their entire strategic doctrine, built on the assumption of invulnerability, was unraveling. Ghost, you need to see this. Rodriguez's voice carried an unusual note of awe, patching through fleet surveillance. In the dark screens of abandoned storefronts, Kate watched as Vraxian ships began breaking formation. Some maintained aggressive postures, their commanders demanding continued assault. Others began retreating to higher orbits, shields flickering with uncertainty. A few simply went dark, their crews apparently staging mutinies. Their whole society, Kate murmured, watching a group of junior Vraxian officers surrender to a National Guard unit. It was built on that shield technology, wasn't it? Intelligence is coming in fast, Rodriguez confirmed. Seems they've been the dominant force in their sector for centuries. No one could touch them. Until a primitive species with primitive weapons proved they weren't gods, just soldiers who forgot the basics. The evidence was everywhere. Without central leadership, Vraxian units reverted to their most basic training, which proved dangerously inadequate. Their warriors bunched together in the open, seeking safety in numbers but presenting perfect target groupings. Their officers, used to being untouchable, still stood exposed while giving orders. The long-shot teams were merciless. Confirmed kill, Sector 7. Torres reported over the tactical net. These bugs are actually moving closer together, like they think more shields equal better protection. Same in Sector 4, Chief Chen added. They're so focused on energy readings, they don't even look up anymore. Traditional countersniping is completely foreign to them. Kate watched through her scope as another Vraxian unit discovered this truth the hard way. Their formation, tight and exposed, lost 3 officers in quick succession to precision fire. Instead of seeking cover, they activated more shield generators, the energy field around them becoming almost solid and completely useless against kinetic rounds. Ghost, Command wants your assessment. Rodriguez cut in. Fleet dynamics are shifting by the minute. Some captains are calling for full retreat. Others want to glass the planet. We need to know. They're done, Kate interrupted. Certain. Their entire military philosophy was based on perfect defense. We didn't just crack their shields. We cracked their worldview. Look. She transmitted her scope feed, showing a Vraxian walker crew abandoning their vehicle. The massive machine, nearly invincible with its multiple shield arrays, was useless against snipers who could target the exposed command pod. The aliens were learning that technology meant nothing without tactical wisdom to apply it. Getting similar reports worldwide, Rodriguez confirmed. London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo. Every sniper team is reporting the same pattern. They have no doctrine for fighting an enemy they can't see. No concept of cover versus concealment. No fundamentals, Kate finished, tracking another Vraxian officer through her scope. The alien was literally covered in shield generators now, the devices jury-rigged together in a desperate attempt to stop the invisible death that kept finding them. They skipped the basics and went straight to advanced technology. That's why they're falling apart now. Her radio crackled with multiple frequencies as reports flooded in. Vraxian units surrendering en masse. Ships breaking orbit. Command centers going silent as their leadership structure imploded. Centuries of assumed superiority crumbling before the simple physics of a well-placed round. Ghost, new orders from command. Rodriguez's voice carried a hint of satisfaction. They want you to coordinate with global sniper teams. Teach them everything you've learned about Vraxian vulnerabilities. This isn't just about Denver anymore. Kate allowed herself a grim smile as she watched another alien officer fall, their shields failing against basic ballistic physics. The Vraxians had conquered 37 worlds with their advanced technology, never imagining that a primitive species would remember what they have forgotten. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the most effective. Tell Command I'll need a secure channel, she said, already planning her lessons. These aliens need to learn what every human warrior has known since the first hunter picked up a rock. Technology doesn't make you invincible. Understanding the basics of warfare does. The education of the Vraxians was about to begin in earnest. 3 months after Supreme War Leader Cax's death, Kate stood in the rebuilt Denver Convention Center, watching Vraxian diplomats squirm under the gaze of Earth's military leaders. The peace conference had drawn representatives from all 37 worlds previously conquered by the aliens, each eager to witness the humbling of their former overlords. "The terms are non-negotiable," General Chen announced, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. "Earth will share our military doctrine with your forces, teaching the fundamental skills your reliance on technology made you forget." Kate suppressed a smile as the Vraxian ambassador's mandibles clicked in barely contained indignation. His personal shield was noticeably absent, a requirement for entering the conference. They all remembered what happened to Cax. "We are amenable to learning your primitive." The ambassador caught himself, antennae twitching. "Your traditional combat techniques, but surely our shield technology will be modified based on our understanding of kinetic weapons." Kate interrupted, stepping forward. The Vraxians' multiple eyes all locked onto her, recognizing the infamous Ghost of Denver, who had shattered their illusion of invincibility. "Your shields aren't worthless. You just never learned to use them as part of a comprehensive defense strategy." The silence in the room was thick with history. On the walls, screens showed footage from what historians were already calling the 7-Day War. Vraxian ships retreating in disarray, warriors learning the hard way about cover and concealment, an empire of advanced technology undone by the basics of warfare. "Your species," the ambassador said carefully, "has much to teach us. But what do you gain from this alliance?" Rodriguez, now Colonel Rodriguez, stepped forward with a datapad. "Your FTL technology, your medical advances, your clean energy systems. We'll trade you the fundamentals of warfare for the fundamentals of technological progress. A fair exchange." Kate watched the proceedings with professional detachment, but her mind was already on the future. The Vraxians weren't the only advanced species out there. Humanity needed to be ready. "Ghost," Rodriguez said softly as the diplomats began signing treaties, "Command wants you to head up the new Interstellar Combat Academy. Teach both humans and aliens the art of precision warfare." "First lesson," Kate mused, "will be having them leave their shields behind. Learn to fight without depending on technology. Then learn to integrate it properly." The ambassador approached her after the signing, his posture showing what she now recognized as respect. "The warrior who changed everything," he clicked softly. "You know, we found records of similar weapons in our ancient history. We thought we had evolved beyond them." "You didn't evolve beyond them," Kate corrected. "You forgot why they worked. Technology should enhance fundamental skills, not replace them." Later that evening, Kate stood on the rebuilt observation deck of the Wells Fargo Center, her trusted rifle across her back. Below, human and Vraxian construction crews worked together to restore the city. In orbit, alien ships now protected Earth alongside human vessels, their crews learning from each other. "Ready for your first class tomorrow?" Rodriguez asked, joining her at the railing. "You've got quite the mixed group. Human snipers, Vraxian warriors, even representatives from their former subject worlds." Kate nodded, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded her of alien shields. "Going to start with the basics. No technology. No shields. Just the fundamentals of staying alive in combat. And the lesson. That progress isn't about forgetting the old ways," she said, fingering her rifle's worn stock. "It's about building on them. The Vraxians forgot that. We reminded them." As night fell over Denver, Kate Ghost Miller allowed herself to feel the weight of history. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and emerged stronger, not through superior technology, but through remembering the fundamental truths of warfare that no advanced shield could block. The galaxy was watching now, and thanks to one sniper shot, they all knew. Sometimes the oldest weapons were the most dangerous ones. Sometimes the simplest truths were the most powerful. And sometimes the best way forward was to remember what got you there in the first place.